Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Anthony Prakash. I'll tell you a little bit about myself a little later, but I'm here to talk to you about a couple of my favorite topics: IoT, and of course, the reason why we are all here, Flutter and Dart, and how that universe comes together. Not a lot of talks on IoT here yet, slightly disappointing, but hopefully that'll improve as we progress with this journey on IoT and embedded with Flutter and Dart. And we'll see more topics and more speakers coming out of this. So first of all, what is IoT? I think all of us know this, but a quick refresher on what is IoT. I mean, you can possibly see a bunch of IoT devices within this room, but a really good definition of what IoT is, it's physical objects embedded with sensors and actuators that can communicate with computing systems or CPUs, whatnot, whether it's wired or wireless, doesn't matter. And it is allowing the physical world around us to be monitored and even controlled. That's where the actuators come in. So you don't have to remember this, but just a refresher on what we mean by IoT, and it's coming from a very reliable source in McKinsey. So most of us, when we think of IoT, we think of these things that are around our home. I mean, things that we use for smart devices or smart rings or whatnot. Some of us might have this at home already. Some of us might have all of these at home. These are pretty common. Yes, this is IoT. However, the world of IoT is much, much beyond that. And these are the sort of devices, sensors, and actuators that are taking the world by storm right now. And why is that? Right? We'll get to what's the driving force behind all of this happening with IoT in a little bit. But as I said, wanted to start off with what sort of IoT are we dealing with, and we'll talk about as we get through this talk. So 15.2 billion, this is the current number of IoT devices around the world. That is double of the current world population of 8 billion. And this is actually going to be doubled by the time we hit 2030, if not more. That's the revolution that is happening right now, whether it's at home, whether it's in our factories, whether it's in the street, whether it's in trains, doesn't matter. Everyone is using IoT right now. And what are we doing about it as a community? The Flutter and Dart community is the focus of today's talk. So what we'll do today is dive a little bit deeper into the IoT market itself. And for all of you, or most of you as technologists, what does the current stack look like? And where can we fit in as Flutter and Dart developers? We'll look at that in the second part. And then why am I here talking to you guys about this topic, right? I mean, where can we play a role? Where can you make money? Where can you advance your careers is what we'll talk about at the third part. And last but not the least, I mean, like Eric was saying this morning, how do we leave the nest? I mean, if that's what it takes for us to go do this, what do we need to do, right? So as I said earlier, my name is Anthony Prakash. I work with a company called @Sign. Hopefully those of you on Twitter have seen us. We are a company that bet big on Dart and Flutter 4 years ago, almost 4 years ago. 2019 is when our company started. We started working on the consumer app side of things, much like most of your enterprise apps, but the IoT market really pulled us away. So we have a platform called @Platform, and it's entirely built on Dart. We have widgets in Flutter, you build apps in Flutter, all of that. But the market really pulled us because they saw the need in doing this. So for the last 2 years plus, we've been entirely focused on IoT, hardware related to IoT, which we'll talk about very soon, and all of that. And I've been privileged to be part of this community since 2019 as well. So I also run the Silicon Valley community for Flutter, which is probably a year plus old and growing really good. And thrilled to be here with all of you here in Berlin. So let's jump in. Let's look at a little bit deeper on the IoT market itself. So you probably can't read all of this in detail, but this looks at the entire spectrum of the world of IoT. Like I said earlier, every industry is impacted by IoT right now. And one of my favorites that's not in here is the Internet of Cows, or there's another one called the Internet of Pigs. Uh, Even that is not left alone by IoT, right? So much of IoT going into the world of agriculture as well. So that's the big picture view. So as a Flutter or Dart developer, why should you care about IoT, right? I mean, number one, you need demand, you need work, we need projects to work on and things like that. So this is a very, very recent report as of 2-3 weeks ago. McKinsey estimates that the economic value with all this IoT going into the market is going to be almost $13 trillion. I don't even know how many zeros that is. That's a big number. That's the economic value that this industry by itself is going to create. And what amongst that is for the Flutter and Dart community? That's to be decided. That's totally up to us, right? We'll get to that. And every industry, like I said, is impacted by this, whether it's the factories, manufacturing your retail or CPG goods that come home, or logistics, or just this building. I mean, we don't know how smart this building is. I mean, especially in APAC, everything is being touched by IoT. I mean, there's a camera in every nook and corner. There's a sensor in every nook and corner. The bridges have sensors, the roads have sensors, the traffic lights have sensors. Everything is touched by IoT, right? So every walk of life is impacted by IoT. But whether we have Dart and Flutter there yet? Not yet, but we need to. So what's fueling this? A bunch of different factors, but just to summarize this, let's start with what do you see as the 5G impact. All of us know how fast and prevalent the whole 5G rollout's happening. And before you know it, people are going to talk about 6G. This has had a big impact on why IoT is expanding at the pace it is. A lot of these IoT devices are also cellular enabled, and that needs to be doing a lot of refresh in your fields, especially with factories and logistics and all of that. Most of the cellular devices or IoT devices rather, are also cellular enabled. So that's playing a big role. Second one, technology. Just in general, the advancement of technology is making manufacturing of all of these sensors and actuators and whatnot so much more cheaper, so much more available to everyone, so everyone's using it, right? Then what that also means is there's a FOMO effect that's happening. If your competitor is doing it, I want to do it as well. So if somebody is doing it in the factory and that makes it 40% efficient, your competitor is saying, okay, I want it better. Let me roll out IoT as well. So there's a lot of that happening. What that also means is so much investment happening on the IoT side. So the top down, the CEOs are looking at it and saying, I want to invest a lot of money in IoT. So multiple reasons, and what it also gives rise to is a bunch of opportunities. A lot of open source projects coming out, advancement in cloud, all of those things cater to this whole spend and momentum in this particular market. And then if you look at the dollars per se, and if you look at it from right now to say the next 5 years, which is a reasonable enough forecast, you'd see spend across the different layers of IoT or the stack of IoT. So what should you care about? You should look at what the IoT software buildup is as of right now, according to 2022. There's a large number of dollars already being pumped into IoT-related software. And not just that, I mean, you can look at it from an IoT security perspective. I mentioned our company before, AtSign or AtPlatform. We are being looked at purely from a security perspective, and that plays a big role in the IoT world as well. So there's a lot of money to be had in whether you're a small business or a big business or even an independent app developer. There's a lot of money being spent in the IoT world. And speaking of the tech stack, that'll be what we'll go into next. So if you take a typical architecture of an IoT project, you can look at this through different lenses. So let's look at this through this very simple lens of 4 different layers. There's a perception layer, whatever you can see here. I mean, there might be a camera here, there might be a temperature control there. So all of them cater to the perception layer of IoT. Then the data captured by them needs to be routed or transported. So then comes your gateways and routers and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and so on and so forth. And there comes cellular as well. That's your transport layer. And then comes your processing layer. What do you do with this data, right? Your web services, APIs, your databases, cloud, and whatnot. That's your next layer. And then what you guys love, or most of you love, building apps to take that data, show it to people that are actually using that data, or analytics or whatnot, and then give it to the consumer or give it to the enterprise to make good business decisions. That's your application layer or your presentation layer. So this is just one view or one lens to look at what are the different layers of your IoT architecture. If you want to dive a little deeper into this, here's another way to look at this. This is kind of flipped upside down. You can look at the APIs that connect between the event processing layer and the analytics. You have a service bus layer. Below that, your communications. And then you also have all your hardware at the bottommost layer. And then you have your device managers, identity management systems, and whatnot. So this is another lens. If you're a networking guy, you can actually look at this much more differently, right? So if you look at this from the sensor side to the other one, you have all these sensors. Then you have connectivity that needs to happen, whether it's over wire or wirelessly to your processor to process the data. And then what other technologies exist after that? Whether it's your gateways, whether it's LoRaWAN, whether it's simple GSM using cellular, all of those technologies play a big role in the IoT world right now. And then how that all carries on to the cloud or your independent data centers, that's a whole different thing. I mean, we do that even today. But the reason I'm showing all this is we're going to see where is the opportunity for the Flutter developer, or where is the opportunity for a Dart developer that we're totally missing out on at this moment in time. So in my world, I speak to hardware manufacturing companies, people who want IoT implementations, people who want IoT security, just IoT all day for me. And I've probably talked about 500 different companies. And the most common answers when I ask them saying, what IoT software do you guys use today? These are the most common answers. And you'll see very clearly, Flutter and Dart never even get mentioned. So in the 500 plus that I've probably talked to, maybe 4 of them know about Flutter and Dart. Rest of them have no idea what is Flutter and Dart. That's the level in which the maturity of Flutter and Dart is in the IoT market right now. And you'd see most of this are also platforms, the big companies, the platforms that are implementing IoT. And companies imagine saying this is the only way to do it. Platform is the only way to go. Yes, they are all good products, but at the same time, I mean, all of them come with their own set of baggage. I mean, if you get sucked into one platform, you got to use the same platform for everything. So that's how the big companies get here. And let's talk about the opportunity. So Flutter and Dart was not there right now in the conversation. Let's see how we can make it as part of the conversation. So before we get into that, a few things to remember. Some of the tailwinds that we can ride on and the headwinds that we need to take care of while doing this. This is again from the McKinsey article. The tailwind, or the big help that is coming in for the IoT market, is just the perceived value. I spoke about the economic value of several $1 trillion. Everyone's taking notice of this particular market, right? The second one is affordability. Sensors are cheap. I think we had another talk earlier today. Sensors, you can get sensors for like 50 cents if you're buying in bulk. That's how cheap sensors are today, right? So everyone wants to implement this, so everyone wants to ride the wave. And with 5G, 6G coming up, I mean, that's a big push as well that you can ride on. However, there's a lot of companies out there that are still on legacy systems, pretty old systems, the old way of doing things. They're worried about the change management aspect of it. How am I going to ride this wave of IoT? How am I going to implement all this without impacting my current roadmap of items and all of that? Another thing that is really interesting for this crowd is the interoperability aspect of it. Right now, people write for different platforms, different pieces of code. I think Eric mentioned about this morning as well. With Flutter, that's a big advantage. We write one piece of code. You can use it on several different, hardware and configurations and whatnot. So that's a super big advantage that Flutter and Dart have. The other headwind is everyone's worried about security. There's not a day that goes by where a hacker gets into a big enterprise through, say, a temperature control sensor in a warehouse, right? Those are super serious breaches that are happening, causing massive disruption in the supply chain and whatnot. At the same time, ransomware and this and that. So everyone's worried about that. At the same time, privacy as well. I mean, if you have sensors all over this room, I mean, some of us may not even enter this room, right? I mean, so there's a whole privacy aspect coming in, and how we tackle that is going to be very interesting to watch for us over the next few years. So just keep this in mind as we look at how Flutter and Dart can impact this whole market. So the IoT opportunity for Dart and Flutter, we look at some of the previous diagrams and we'll see where we can fit in. So we saw this picture earlier in terms of how the reference architecture is. And if you look at where we can fit in, I mean, we can literally fit into every layer of this particular architecture, right from the hardware level, whether it's sensors or gateways or whatnot, to the communication layer, to the application layer, which we do a really good job of right now, to APIs and building whatnot. Every layer can be impacted by Flutter and Dart. That's the opportunity. But we're barely scratching the surface when it comes to where we are with the overall ecosystem as such. We saw the network-centric view. This is the view that we saw. And where do you think we can play a role? Literally everywhere. If you take this diagram and look at places in which Flutter and Dart can play a role, we can impact each of these different groups. I mean, each by itself, just the networking aspect by itself, the gateway by itself are big markets by themselves. We can impact each of them individually in a big way. And it is happening, right? I mean, the market is stabilizing over the last few years, but it is super ripe for disruption. And you can see the spend comparison between 2022 to 2027. And in some of the cases, especially say for software, you'd see that, I mean, it's almost getting doubled, right? IoT devices and hardware, I mean, from 88 to 166. So there's a lot of spend happening here where this crowd, as the Flutter and Dart community, can play a big role in going and grabbing this piece of pie, which is currently going to everybody else except us. So that's not to say there's absolutely no work happening in the Flutter and Dart community on IoT. So if you do a simple Google search, which is what I've done, and I'll show you some examples, you will see people working on embedded systems, people working on, we have even on the flutter.dev site, I mean, the Toyota use case is there. You have some samples of people playing around with embedded, but it just stops there. We do not have any solid case studies on where Flutter and Dart have been implemented in embedded systems. So it's still super early days. I showed you a Things board earlier. So Things board, they are big into IoT. They have their own platform. They actually have an open source project based on Flutter. Some of the companies just choose to use this. So there is some good work going on here with Things board. Any of you familiar with Things board, you can try this out. So we actually have tried this as well before we started building our own stuff. And this is a product that we recently launched called No Ports. This is essentially, you can connect to any device from anywhere in the world without opening any ports on that particular device. No network ports open on that device. So zero attack surface on that device. Entirely built on Dart and Flutter. So this is another product that is out there for the IoT market, for the enterprise, if you will, that is out there. That's another example. And then if you look at from an IoT perspective, you always need visuals. You need dials and gauges and whatnot, because I mean, especially from an industrial point of view, you really need to look at this. When we started looking at this, I mean, there was none of this available. So we were using things board, and then we rolled up our sleeve and started building some of these things. I mean, and imagine if you take this, come up with your own ideas and start building um, gauges and meters and whatnot. I mean, sky's the limit on what we can do, especially just on the visualization part of it. So in summary, the work we do today in Dart and Flutter, I mean, it's just tip of the iceberg. There's just so much more to do, and the opportunity is huge. And just based off the numbers, just based off the different layers that you saw in the stack, there's plenty of opportunity for us to impact the IoT market. So how do we get going? I mean, it's not too hard. I mean, it's super simple in terms of starting point. I'm going to use some of the same elements that Eric alluded to as well. We need to get started somewhere. Like I said, number one, where most of the money is on the enterprise side of things, people are actually unaware. First of all, we need awareness on the enterprise side to tell businesses saying Flutter and Dart exist. I mean, there's a roadmap for Flutter and Dart. There's so many developers in the community around the world. We need to spread the word, and that starts with communities like ours, right? I mean, events like this where we can showcase what this technology is capable of. The second one is just the community, right? I mean, we all need to embrace the power of IoT and what this can mean for us. I mean, obviously, you need to be interested in it for you to embrace it. But if you see the opportunity in this, I mean, you can pave your own path with this, and there's just so much potential with this as a developer looking at it through your lens. And the third one, which is going to take some time because this has been going on for a while already, is the hardware manufacturers. I mean, most of them are in offshore locations. A lot of this coming from China, Taiwan, South Korea. A lot of those places are where most of these chips and hardware get manufactured. We need to start at the factory level to put some of our software inside those gateways, inside those sensors, so that they see the power of it. And today, the preferred options for most of these guys are, I mean, C++, MicroPython's playing a big role, Rust as well to a certain extent. And they are the lead dogs right now when it comes to what's embedded on that hardware and all of that. But we have to start somewhere. I mean, as AtSign, we do some of that ourselves, but it's just us and a few others doing it for the IoT market right now. So that's a start, right? Awareness, education, learning on the IoT market, what you can do, what interests you is essentially step one. Step two is we need a little help from Google. I don't know if anyone's here in the room from Google. All these smaller microcontrollers that are not CPU based. I mean, especially the ESP32 and the Arduino, and some of these small sensors. Chris Swan from our team talked about it this morning with RISC-V as well. There's a lot of work to be done. I mean, right now, these can't run Dart. That's why a lot of this is that opportunity is being grabbed by other companies. And with Google's help, I mean, we can go after that market as well. We can really make a dent there if we get it right, whether it's with RISC-V and with some of those smaller sensors and microcontrollers. We need a little catch up to do in terms of compatibility overall. And then this is something the Flutter community already does a really good job of. I mean, I don't know how many of you here are still in school, but with the pandemic and everything, I've noticed there are just so many students who jump onto the Flutter and Dart bandwagon. And what we do as a company, I've put a couple of examples here. The colleges are promoting IoT in a big, big way. And what's happening is they're also unaware of Flutter and Dart. They're also using non-Flutter and Dart technology. So if you don't catch them young, they will just steer away to other technologies. So what we've been trying to do with the University of Massachusetts Boston is we do as part of one of the summer projects or the winter semester projects, we ask them to come up with ideas on IoT, and as much as possible, we encourage them to use Flutter and Dart. And they use our platform as well, which is based on Dart. But you can see, I mean, how small these controllers are and sensors are. And for both these projects, they ended up using C++ on the hardware because, I mean, our technology is not compatible yet. But on the app side of though, they've built all of that on Flutter. So the summary here for this one is, I mean, we can make a big impact to start this journey with IoT at the college level itself. And if we can influence people there, everyone coming out of colleges would already know Flutter and Dart and IoT, and that'll pave the way in the long run. And then this is maybe in our hands, maybe not in our hands, maybe in our boss's hands. There's a lot of investments needed. I mean, it's not going to be cheap, but apart from the continuous learning that all of us can do on our own time, there's a lot of hiring and talent development that is needed as well. Because, I mean, there is a learning curve when it comes to doing this, but it's a quick learning curve. But, I mean, we need to invest the time and money in doing it. R&D, there's a lot of R&D that needs to happen in terms of compatibility with hardware and software and what we can do. And then last but not the least, I mean, we need some industry partnerships. Flutter and Dart partnering with hardware manufacturers as a default software. That'll go a long way. So some of the investments that we need to overall make for this particular industry. So to summarize, how do we get this revolution going? I mean, we obviously see that there's a big opportunity there in terms of dollars. And this wave is going to go on for the next 10 years. Most of the projections say it's going to be about 40 billion devices by the time we hit 2030 or 2035. And all of these are going to need software. Otherwise, it's just going to, we need to be able to manage all of them. We need to be able to control all of them. And we need apps for all of that. We need software running on the hardware for all of that. So what can we do as a community to start that revolution, which is kind of begun, is education. Number one, we all need to educate ourselves a little better with IoT and the impact that we can do. Get a little help from Google with the compatibility issues for the hardware that I referred to. Whatever you can do to bring in those industry liaisons or partnerships, that'll go a long way as well. Because if you can start at the factory level, that's going to be huge for us to penetrate this market in a big time. And then we need dollars, time investment, dollar investment, or euro investment rather, and make sure that our technology is relevant in this particular market. And then last but not the least, I mean, the power of this community. We already know the power of this community. And if we can keep harping on it over and over, and a few of us pick up the mantle and lead the way, I think this is a market that Dart and Flutter can truly dominate. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.